I started this channel by talking about Tri-Rail and all the possibilities it had for the future, along with some of its current problems. Well, Tri-Rail's in the news again, and for a not-so-great reason this time. Basically, there's a non-zero chance that Tri-Rail runs out of money by 2027. This isn't unique in any way, plenty of US transit agencies are coming up on similar fiscal cliffs, but I want to talk about it. Talk about what Tri-Rail has going in its favor long-term, and then about solutions to make sure that Tri-Rail is able to stay and improve. Long story short, Tri-Rail is run by a state-created agency called SFRTA. SFRTA's funding comes from a variety of sources, from federal funds to fares to statute-required funding from FDOT and the 3 counties that Tri-Rail serves. Historically, the counties have provided the bare minimum required of them by statute, with FDOT voluntarily footing a bit more of the bill. But now, FDOT wants to take a step back and go to their bare minimum, with some dubious legal interpretations of statute, and is saying to the counties if they want to keep Tri-Rail, they should foot more of the bill. The gap isn't huge. It's about $15 million for 2027, so about $5 million for each of the 3 counties, but it can grow to potentially $50 million in a few years, again, depending on interpretation of statute. The counties do have the money, but it's become a game of chicken and negotiations to see who blinks first, and some county politicians who actually straight up don't care if we keep Tri-Rail going or not, which is insane to me. To try to make their case to the 3 counties and to FDOT that they're worth keeping, SFRTA commissioned a consultant to study their economic impact, and the results were really positive. It found that indirect economic impacts from Tri-Rail, such as wages workers make, the labor access for people to be able to travel to their jobs, and the money SFRTA itself spends locally, it's adding about $642 million per year to the local economy. Then you have the indirect impacts, mostly on property values. The study found that proximity to Tri-Rail stations gave properties a value premium of about 1.1% on average, with closer properties having a higher premium. Don't ask me how they got that number, I'm not an economist. But this increases the taxable values on surrounding properties by about $1.6 billion total. Looking at the typical millage rate the counties assess, we're talking about $32 million per year in property taxes going back to local governments and to schools. I don't think you have to be a mathematician or an economist to know that if the local government spend $15 million a year to get back $32 million, in addition to the direct economic impacts, you take that deal every time. But let's take a closer look at that impact on property values. I discussed this in my previous video about Tri-Rail, but just look at what the areas around most of these stations are like. They're super low density, mostly industrial, with most of these warehouses being over 60 years old, fully depreciated structures. This is not valuable property, but it's still generating a lot of revenue for local governments. That $1.6 billion is based on existing development, but is it always going to look like this? The answer is no. I'm going to try to briefly go over some of the plans and projects happening around the stations, because I want to make a few things clear by the end of the video. The first is that with all the development that's going to happen in the near future, the property value premium of 1.1% given by proximity to Tri-Rail is going to be worth multiples of what it is today, and is clearly a net positive for local governments. The second is that all of this development is going to boost Tri-Rail's ridership significantly by finally giving people reasons to go to places close to the stations, making Tri-Rail a little more financially stable on its own. And the third is that if we don't have the train, the amount of traffic that these developments are going to generate will be absolutely unbearable. And the other typical solutions, like building another lane or 2 on I-95, are much, much more expensive than just keeping the train. Let's start at the very southern end of the line with the Miami Airport Station. Miami Freedom Park is a new sports and entertainment district that was approved 2 years ago and has started construction. It'll include a new 25,000-seat stadium for Inter Miami, our Major League Soccer team, currently boasting the likes of Lionel Messi and a who's who of near-retired Latin American players, along with shopping, dining, hotels, and offices. Tri-Rail is what will allow millions of people who live north of here to access the events and amenities there, and we definitely don't want even more people driving around the airport. Now let's talk about Hialeah for a second. Despite having 2 Tri-Rail stations and 3 Metro Rail stations within the city limits, this city is not known for its transit-friendly land uses. However, they're currently working on a plan to address this issue in order to improve the city, guide redevelopment, and address the housing crisis. This plan is called the Hialeah 2050 Plan, and it's supposed to be a master urban planning document for the city to follow in the coming years. The plan isn't fully done yet, but their website has a bunch of resources on the direction they're headed, and the city council is expected to vote on it this year. They actively want to encourage redevelopment around the Hialeah Market Station and Tri-Rail Metro Rail Transfer Station into true TOD districts. The transfer station in particular is getting a lot of attention because Miami-Dade County's RTZ policy allows developers to go to the county for approval of projects near transit stations, and developers have already been taking advantage of it at that station in particular. There are over 2,000 new residential units built, under construction, or approved around this station in just the past few years. Hell, look at this new building that's basically touching the train platforms. In order for this stuff to actually be TOD, you kind of have to still have the train there after 2027. The next station is Opa-locka. Opa-locka as a city hasn't been doing too hot compared to the rest of the metro area, but they're betting big on Tri-Rail to be their ticket to improvement. In 2021, the city passed the Opa-locka Downtown Master Plan for redeveloping downtown Opa-locka, which is centered on the Tri-Rail station. Side note, yes, I think their Moorish revival theme is cool and not tacky. Anyways, this plan and the subsequent rezoning greatly increased the allowable density to over 200 units per acre and the mix of uses allowed near the station, while reducing the overall parking requirements. They actually want to attract development. Unfortunately, developers for the most part haven't been taking advantage of it, focusing on trendier areas like in the city of Miami or Coral Gables. However, the city did work with a developer called 10 North to basically build multiple blocks of the downtown district, totaling up to 2,000 new units, half of which are below market, and a bunch of new commercial space. The project struggled to get off the ground, but the developer finally got financing last year to build the first phase of the project. The hope is that once this project gets going, it attracts other developers to fill in the rest of downtown and make it a vibrant, mixed-use, transit-oriented community. Before we leave Miami-Dade, I have to talk about the extension to downtown Miami. My last video was done 2 years ago, before the extension was done. Well, Tri-Rail now goes all the way to downtown Miami. I don't think I need to go too in-depth on the development happening downtown because that would make this video over an hour long. But I hope that this image and the statement that there are literally tens of thousands of new units and millions of square feet of new office and commercial space will suffice. The really exciting and out-of-nowhere change along the extension is actually in a different neighborhood called Little River. Currently, there are no stations between the transfer station and downtown Miami. But when Miami-Dade County put out an RFP to redevelop about 63 acres of publicly owned land along the rail line, a consortium of developers led by Swerdlow Group jumped on the opportunity and offered to build a new Tri-Rail infill station here, and in exchange, be able to build over 5,400 new housing units, all of which are below market, along with a ton of new commercial space. The county just approved the project last year, with one of the conditions being that the station has to be open within 5 years of the first building being completed. This is one massive project, but then you have another development on private land right next door wanting to build 2,000 units, and yet another proposal to redevelop a mobile home park that currently has 151 homes into a mixed-use project with 4,000 units and commercial space. This is a station that doesn't exist yet, but when it's built, it'll be the centerpiece of a new mixed-use urban neighborhood with over 10,000 units and a bunch of new commercial space, a city within the city. Alright, let's finally leave Miami-Dade and go to Broward. There's not a ton going on here. It's actually really frustrating to see how many cities in Broward have downtown zones that seem to purposefully exclude the areas around Tri-Rail stations. None of the cities are doing anything with their Tri-Rail stations except for Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood. Let's start with Fort Lauderdale, which just rezoned the area north of Cypress Creek Station into a new zone called Uptown Urban Village. Though the zoning is a bit lacking in terms of density, capping at about 50 units per acre, and in parking, where it still has pretty high minimum parking requirements for TOD, it's a good start. They're actually allowing mixed use with residential near a train station. The caveat is that the station is on the south side of a huge arterial road from where the actual development will be. While the master plan does call for moving the station across the street to the north side, where it'll actually be within this TOD district, they need approval from SFRTA and FDOT and the funding to actually build that station, so that's not happening anytime soon. Last year, Hollywood's Planning and Development Board approved an ordinance to create an affordable housing overlay based on county incentives for affordable housing. Now, this policy is very complex, and I could make an entire video just explaining it, but the gist of what Hollywood wanted to do was to allow unlimited height and density on any commercial lots that are touching arterial roads or are within 1/2 mile of train stations, with minimum heights of around 10 stories, and would decrease parking minimums for any project within 1/4 mile of the stations. Hollywood has 2 Tri-Rail stations on Hollywood Boulevard and Sheridan Street that have a lot of eligible property nearby, so they benefit immensely. The bus corridors that feed into these stations would also get this density boost, so there's a massive amount of potential for ridership growth. What's really weird is that this was passed unanimously by the Planning and Development Board in May of 2025, but as of January 2026, it still hasn't gone to City Commission for a vote. So if anyone watching this video lives in Hollywood, maybe reach out to your city commissioner to push them to get a vote done. Finally, we enter Palm Beach County. At Boca Raton Station, SFRTA, FDOT, the city, and the county have signed an agreement allowing the parking lot of the station to be redeveloped into a mixed-use building with 340 new units and 30,000 square feet of commercial space. Additionally, the developer will be paying a ground rent to SFRTA for about $2 million annually. Again, not only are we going to get more ridership and fare revenue, the developers are literally paying millions of dollars directly to SFRTA. We should be doing this at every station on the line. Additionally, the Boca Raton Innovation Center, or BRIC, which is the former IBM complex literally right next to the station, got approval for a massive redevelopment. They're retaining the existing 1.7 million square feet of office space and building new stuff on the surface parking lots. It's over 1,000 units, a hotel, a bunch of retail, and an entertainment venue. And then on the other side of I-95, connected directly to the station by the El Rio Trail, is the University Village development, which will also add almost 800 new units, another hotel, a lot of retail, and a new office complex. Delray Beach Station is going to get a brand new county government center literally in the station's parking lot. It's going to include about 278,000 square feet of office space for city, county, and state employees and members of the public, plus a major bus transfer hub to feed bus riders to the train. And they're leaving about 10 acres of land open for private mixed-use development. This could potentially be a very high ridership station in the near future. Downtown West Palm Beach has a ton of stuff going for it. There's going to be a new campus for Vanderbilt University literally right next to the station. Additionally, there's a project called Transit Village with over 1,000 units, a new hotel, and commercial space including restaurants and offices, and it's literally attached to the station. This project has had a shaky time due to a legal battle with the county over how much the developer has to pay to get the land, but this will be settled in court soon and then construction will start. And then you have a bunch of other development happening around downtown because this station is actually really well located in an already existing downtown of a major city in South Florida. I don't expect any of you to be keeping track, but when you add all this up, we're talking billions and billions of dollars in new investment. Tens of thousands of new housing units, millions of square feet of new commercial space, supporting tens of thousands of new jobs, tons of new sales tax and property tax revenue. And yet our counties and cities say they can't afford to pay $15 million a year to keep it going. Funding Tri-Rail is the fiscally responsible position. In what world would you choose to save $15 million a year instead of making tens of millions of dollars a year in extra tax and fare revenue? To be completely fair to the local governments, there are things the state can do to put Tri-Rail in a better financial position. Not just short-term funding to keep it alive until some of these projects start supercharging ridership and revenue. I want to start by talking about the stations themselves. These are old stations with overpasses between the platforms and very large park and ride lots. On the station maintenance, SFRTA is spending millions of dollars a year maintaining all these overpasses and elevators and have been requesting for FDOT to allow them to do the crossings at grade, which is basically free. FDOT to this point has said no, but again, this is millions of dollars a year in savings for a negligible safety benefit and a lot of inconvenience for passengers needing to change platforms. Then we have the parking lots themselves. As was mentioned before about the Boca Raton station, SFRTA is working with a private developer to redevelop the parking lot with a mixed-use building and is being paid $2 million a year from them. If SFRTA could make $2 million per year for each station, that's an immense amount of money. The problem is that most of the parking lots are owned by FDOT, which to this point hasn't been very interested in pursuing redevelopment. We need to call on FDOT to transfer ownership of the stations and parking lots to SFRTA so that they can do this redevelopment work themselves. If you live in Miami-Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach counties, please reach out to your county commissioners asking them to find the money to fund Tri-Rail. Or you can also ask your city commissioners to find ways for the municipalities to help share some of the burden. They have a whole host of different ways to do it and massive budgets. I don't think any of them realize just how important Tri-Rail is, because they just look at it as 15,000 cars a day not on I-95. But it's so much more than that. It's creating new neighborhoods and districts. It's exploding taxable property values for them, fostering an ecosystem of good urbanism that will enable car-light or car-free living for many residents. This is despite the county and municipal governments here not only not caring about it, but actively blocking all development that would be positive for it until basically a couple years ago. We can't let it die just as it's gaining the framework for long-term success. And if you live in any of the cities that have a station that I didn't highlight in the development section, seriously, reach out to your city commission and show them what they're missing out on by not allowing new development and new neighborhoods to get built around these incredibly useful transit assets. We're so lucky to have this train in South Florida. Most people write off our region as car-brained and anti-transit, but here we have something that not only works now, but will be an amazingly useful system in the years to come, and we need to be doing all we can to keep it.